Hello everyone, this is Star Wars Connection. Today we're going to talk about Halo and its possible inspiration and influence from Star Wars and possible influence on the new canon in Star Wars. My name is Denise and today is a very special episode because we have a special guest. He's Tarb from the YouTube channel Tartano. Hello!
Hi Denise, thank you for letting me come on here.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Alright, so if you don't know Halo, it's really interesting. Tarb is gonna explain a little bit of what Halo is, so go ahead.
Well, salutations. Now, Halo is a media franchise that's mostly anchored around video games, just like how Star Wars is a media franchise, mostly anchored around movies. The basic premise is a couple hundred years in the future, humans are spacefaring, but we encounter a group of aliens called the Covenant, and the Covenant are very religious and they deem humans as living heresy, so they enact a genocidal campaign to try to kill humans. The humans have some super soldiers called Spartans that are able to even the odds up some, but there's only so many Spartans, and just like everybody else, they can die over time. By the time we enter the first game, one of the last Spartans in active combat, John 117, also called Master Chief, is in the middle of a battle with some of the Covenant, and they find a giant ring construct that they later find out is an ancient superweapon called Halo. And then the rest of the franchise mostly covers around humans trying to keep the Halos from ever being fired, the Covenant, who think the Halos were built by their gods, trying to start firing them, while you even have third-party forces, like an ancient parasite called the Flood, getting involved. And over time, the war gets more and more drawn out, some alliances shift, and in the end, an alliance between humans and some of the alien Covenant who defect manage to overthrow the bad guys, and peace is restored. Though then we have to start the Sequel Trilogy. And our main characters are John 117, a Master Chief, a alien defector called the Arbiter, and Chief's assistant and partner, an AI named Cortana.
Yeah, one other thing that's important to note is that the Spartan programs, which is this program for these super soldiers, is created by a scientist named Dr. Halsey. But this program, it basically meant that they kidnapped kids. Not only that, half of these kids, more than half of these kids, either died or became crippled in the program. So the ethics of this program is constantly put in check. It's something that's constantly thought of. And that's an important component of the universe of Halo. And one thing else about Dr. House is that the AI that accompanies Master Chief, Cortana, she was made from a clone of Dr. House's, so she's made from her own brain. And the actress that plays Dr. House is the same that does Cortana, and they look alike. So you have this other component in the Halo series about Dr. House and Cortana and everything, and the ethics. So, okay, one thing that we noticed some influence, I noticed, so I was like, oh my goodness, that's Halo. It was in Rogue One. But we're going to talk a little bit about it later. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the two franchises and what they have, what's similar, what's different, and the influences. Do you want to talk a little bit about it, Tarb?
Yeah, sure. Well, the thing we have here is we have two sci-fi franchises that in many ways codified and made popular many tropes and themes inside a story. They're not necessarily the first stories to come up with these sort of ideas, but they're the first ones that use them in a very popular medium. Star Wars obviously did it with the original trilogy, and then to a lesser extent the prequel and now sequel trilogy.
Come on, lesser extent. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Hey. And then obviously you have Halo doing its influence on the original trilogy of their games, and now the sequel series.
Yes, which some people also don't like as well, right?
Everyone's got their gripes, me included.
Alright, so I think one thing of course, for Halo, it has some influence from a lot of novels, sci-fi novels, I know, but it also has influence from Star Wars, because I think everything that's sci-fi has some influence from Star Wars. Although the idea of a galactic empire, although in Halo it's not really an empire, but you know, it has been present in lots of other medium before.
Yeah, well, they're both underdog stories. In Star Wars, you start with the rebellion against the Empire, and then to a lesser extent in the prequels you have the Confederacy versus their Old Republic, whereas in Halo you have mostly the Alien and Covenant against a much smaller human force. So they both have similar themes in that regard, and you can clearly tell which one influenced the other there, because Star Wars came first, and then Halo followed suit, just in a different way.
Yeah, I just find that Halo is a little bit leaning more towards hard sci-fi. It tries to explain its science. It doesn't make sense. The science doesn't really make a lot of sense, but everything is explained, fictionally, and it's explained. Whereas in Star Wars, things just happen, and you don't really have an explanation for the most part. There are some exceptions, of course.
Well, the last time they tried to explain something in Star Wars, we had midichlorians.
But then they're trying to explain magic. That doesn't work. I mean, yeah, but it's true that you have in Halo, for example, have these ancient civilizations that are, in a way, almost magic, and they have like a sort of historical explanation. I wouldn't say it's scientific, but it's more like, it has an explanation.
They invoke Clark's rule. Science that is sufficiently advanced starts looking indistinguishable from magic. It's something in sci-fi writing, and typically the more advanced you get, the more fantasy tropes you see start leaking in.
Yeah, but Star Wars is a little different in the sense that it's purely magic. It doesn't make any sense. Like, you have a lot of things that just don't make any scientific sense whatsoever, and they don't make any effort into making it believable. It's just so happens. So that's something.
Yes, when something miraculous happens in Star Wars, like Luke Skywalker somehow kicking someone who doesn't even get physically hit, they explain from the Force. If Master Chief manages to kick someone across the room, you're going to get a 4-paper essay about why his muscle and bone structure are stronger.
Yeah, exactly. I know. So yeah, and how, the armor works, and how they extended their bones and everything, and not that it's necessarily possible, but there is this, this idea of trying to explain, which I like it, in a way, but they're different things, right? Star Wars leans towards fantasy. It's a fairy tale in space, so they're different in that sense.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that Star Wars has influenced Halo. I mean, as you pointed out, Star Wars was huge in the early times that it came out and then the decades following. I mean, it basically picked up the same pieces that Star Trek started.
Yeah.
But if we're going to see any cases of it being cross-pollination the other way around, with Halo influencing Star Wars, we need to clarify what time period in Star Wars we're talking about. So, since any influence from Halo will be coming from after Halo came out, obviously, we'd be looking at pretty much anything made after Phantom Menace.
And I think we see something, right? Very light, I would say, maybe in the clones. I would say more in the animated series, the Clone Wars, I would say.
Yeah, especially also in now the old Legends canon where they had super soldiers and the clones. I mean, super soldiers aren't something that Halo came up with itself. That stuff goes back probably decades into science fiction writing. But certainly Master Chief has kind of become the image of the super soldier now in modern sci-fi. And that probably influenced a lot of stuff that started happening in Star Wars. I mean, just look at the armor you see in some of the clones and other soldiers wearing these days.
Yeah, it's true. In fact, the new Battlefront, but that's for later. But I also find, in a way, the way that the clones, they're raised to do that, and they're, so focused, and they're from childhood, this child soldiers grown into soldiers, especially in the Clone Wars, the animated series, their dialogue and how it's all about duty and sacrifice. I don't know, I think there's this thing that takes from it. I think, of course, not only Halo, there are lots of, Halo influenced a lot of video games and lots of things, but I see a little bit of that.
Yeah, especially now that we're looking in kind of the deconstruction phase of Halo, whereas in the original trilogy, everything was treated as awesome when it came to the humans. By and large, I mean, there were some exceptions. Now we're getting the sequel trilogy of Halo, and we start seeing some of the deconstruction elements in that, like some of the psychological problems that happen when you raise a child soldier. Nowadays, in the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, we have child soldiers working for the First Order, and we see that brought up in Star Wars for the first time, as well as a idea of a basically slave soldier in the Clone Wars TV show.
Yeah, that's what I thought was a little similar. But even though they're slaves, they're loyal, a little bit like the Spartans in Halo are, they're not like, oh my goodness, I hate this.
Yeah.
Although there are some cases where they try to escape and everything, but they're so conditioned to do that they can't break through. So it's interesting.
And not to mention, with a lot of the newer soldiers we're seeing in Star Wars post Phantom Menace, we're seeing a lot more powered armor or special armor for certain soldiers. I mean, if you look at the original trilogy of Star Wars, the clone trooper armor could have been made of paper mache for all I care.
Yeah.
Sorry, stormtrooper.
I know, it was terrible. I mean, I don't know why they wore that. I mean, it looked cool. I know it was to look cool, but they would die just like that. I know.
They got killed by murder teddy bears.
I know, but those are evil teddy bears. They eat people. In the end, when they have this ceremony with the empty helmets, you would have to guess what they're eating, right? So
that's lean pork. But we also see some ideas from Halo, which were very popular in that series, starting to pop up in Star Wars. When you look at the original trilogy of Star Wars, all of its back history only goes back a couple of decades. You only get inclinations of stuff that happened in the Old Republic that happened within someone's lifetime, obviously, because a lot of those characters are still stomping around. Whereas in Halo, from the first game right off, we get the inclination there are civilizations that go back thousands, maybe even millions of years back. And that's something we didn't really see Star Wars really taking part in until after the Phantom Menace era, after Halo had already had its influence. I mean, in Halo, you have the Forerunners, and then we find out there's beings even older than them, and the Forerunners, just as a stasis, is tens of thousands of years before the events of the game. Whereas now in Star Wars, we have stuff such as the ancient Sith temple in the Rebels show and creatures like the Bendu.
Yes, it's true. It's because the original Star Wars, it follows the hero's journey, which it's concerned with the hero, right? It's not concerned with the world in which the hero inhabits. But it's true that you have this idea of building this history, and you have that in Star Wars. Yeah, absolutely. And it is more recent, so you could maybe say that it's an influence.
Yeah, and I'm just going to know something with the Lost History here. Does anyone else besides me find it very ironic we only now see the first Jedi Temple in a movie titled Last Jedi?
Why is it ironic?
We get to see the first when we're seeing the last. You think they could have made a stop there by now, somewhere in the multi-decades of time plot we've gone through?
Oh, maybe they did, I'm thinking that they did. It's just that we haven't seen it, It seems that they changed the story of that's something the prequels did, to make the Jedi not as likable, kind of like their way, especially also, I guess, the Clone Wars cartoon show, kind of almost as if they had lost their way, so it would make sense that they would be in a way disconnected from their roots and be, they're in that tower, almost like the ivory tower in that city, they're disconnected from nature and everything the prequel Jedi, I say. So I think I don't see any influence from Halo there, but I'm just saying I think that's one of the reasons why you wouldn't have seen it then.
Yeah. Though I will note, a lot of people tend to forget that Yoda and Obi-Wan tried to get Luke to murder his dad without ever knowing Vader was his dad. It is a little manipulative right there.
Yeah, I know. Obi-Wan and this, no, it's a matter of from a certain point of view, I didn't lie. Yeah. But we still love Obi-Wan.
Retcons are magic.
Yeah, so they're not perfect, and when you see in the prequel Yoda telling a 10-year-old boy, "You're afraid. You shouldn't be afraid." It's like, even though he's a likable character, he's doing something that's not likable. So that's interesting.
If Emperor Sidious was a little afraid of him, I think we all need to be a little afraid of Yoda.
Yeah.
But another thing I also noticed in Halo that I'm now starting to notice in Star Wars is there's a gray on gray morality. Yes, you do have a core good guys versus bad guys story, but if you look at the original trilogy of Star Wars, and then especially in Phantom Menace, you get a very black on white conflict. Empire's bad, Rebels are good. Confederacy's bad, Republic's good. Whereas in Halo, right from the second game, we started getting more gray elements. The core enemy, which were the Covenant, we start seeing that there's more than one voice inside the Covenant, and some of them aren't outright evil, they're just misled. And now we're starting to see some of that more in Star Wars. I mean, heck, in Force Awakens, one of our main protagonists is a turncoat stormtrooper.
But I think that in a way is, I mean, I would say it's more like evolution of storytelling, I would say. But now that you said that, the ethics of the raising the clones, you know, how it's raised, and it is similar to the way that the ethics of having these Spartans is constantly put in question, you know, so that is something. But now, yeah, you're having people switching sides. I think we're gonna have more in the next movie, and yeah, it's true. The idea that you know, villains becoming good again. You had a little bit of that with Ventress, I guess, and in the animated series. I'm not gonna say she turned good, but you know, it's true. You had people changing. Although you had the redemption of Vader, but that was a last minute thing.
Mm-hmm. And especially considering that wasn't the original intent, since Vader wasn't originally supposed to be Luke's dad. That was a retcon Lucas came up with.
I know, yeah, I know. But Lucas says it was his intention, right? So, I mean, I don't know.
Hey, dude's under a lot of stress. I'll come cut him a break.
Okay, so can we talk about Rogue One now? So Rogue One, I'm pretty sure, like, when the poster came out, lots of people in Star Wars forum was like, this doesn't look Star Wars. And I was like, I know what it looks like. You know, you have a bunch of people fighting in a place that looks like an ad for a really cool resort, and there's this super weapon on the background. What is that? That's Halo. So at my first thought was like, oh my goodness, this is Halo. What did you think?
I'm definitely going to agree with the Halo influence, because we all remember in Rogue One when they're having the fight on the planet side, you can see the Death Star looming up over the horizon. Well, the Death Star is a planet-busting weapon. In Halo, we have the titular Halo rings, and in a lot of the levels taking place on the Halo rings, they also look like somebody should be opening a 5-star resort, and you can see the Halo ring looming over the horizon.
Yeah.
So that almost looks like a shot-for-shot recreation.
Yeah. And I was researching to do this, and I know that the people who wrote the story for this, one of the writers is named Gary Whitta, and his job is a video game journalist, and he has written scripts for video games, including Gears of War, which, you know, a kind of similar sort of. So he's definitely someone who knows video games very well, who likes video games very much, and he was one of the writers of the first story. Now, the director, his first movie was a movie called Monsters, which was about some monsters with tentacles fighting people, but it wasn't like monsters, people ran away, people just mainly fought these monsters. I'm gonna confess I haven't seen the movie, I just read about it.
Actually.
You have? So I just thought that it kind of had a little bit to do with the idea of the flood. I know it's different because they're not infectious. What do you think? What's your opinion about it?
I'd say one of the things with the Monsters movie that I can kind of relate a bit to the Halo series is the concept of what looks like an enemy may not actually be an enemy. Because the whole thing with the Monsters movie was they revealed the monsters are mostly just reactive. They're just big animals and they react if you get attacked and if you're attacking them. If you leave them alone, they'll mostly leave you alone. Conversely, in Halo, we frequently bump into big scary monsters, but unless they're part of genocidal alien team jihad, they're not going to really attack you. And again, while Halo's certainly not the first series to do that, a lot of the imagery is pretty similar.
Okay.
Not to mention, if you want a little bit of a funny, the studio actually played a joke on Gareth Edwards because he also directed the latest Godzilla movie from Legendary Pictures, at least the latest American Godzilla film. If you look closely in Rogue One and the cave scene, you actually can see pictures of Godzilla, his enemy the Mudos, and the monster's tentacle creature on the cave walls.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Okay, so yeah, so if we take the idea of this writer, Gary Whitta, that is a video game journalist, plus Gareth Edwards, he's fairly young, you know, I think there is an influence right there, even if it's not conscious, you know, oh, I'm gonna do a movie based in
even
Halo.
If they didn't play Halo themselves, they were young and growing up when Halo was really, really popular. And no doubt influenced media. Yeah,
and one other influence that I would say in Rogue One is also the way the script is laid out. The way it's several tasks, to several smaller tasks that contribute to a big task that have to be done in separate places. And I know that they reshot it, but first they had to do something in that tower, and then they had to run again on the beach, just like, that game where, people run on beaches all the time, 5-star resort beaches, and go to another place. So I think in that sense, task here, a task there, a task there, it looks like and it feels like a video game, and it feels like Halo because of the imagery, the beautiful place.
Yeah, especially some of the installments like Halo Reach and ODST, where it is very, very objective based. You go here, do this, and that lets you do this, to let you do this, to let you do this, but you have to keep jumping around the location to do all that.
Yeah, not to mention Halo Reach is a not suicidal mission where you have a bunch of people doing a very difficult task and they die one by one slowly. So there's a similarity there. Of course, it's not the only. Many war movies are like that, right? Where you have this group of heroes and they slowly die one by one. Yeah. So. Yeah,
but again, it doesn't really necessarily mean that Halo was the first one to do it, as long as it's just one of the ones that kind of codified it into the more modern period. I mean, Seven Samurai and Magnificent Seven, two really well-known Western and samurai films, which we know influenced George Lucas, actually have endings a lot similar to that. To an extent, it still closely does resemble Halo, though.
Yeah, I think it does. The movie, which I'm not sure. I like the visual. It does look cool to have these armies fighting in those, beautiful, almost peaceful sceneries. And it's different. We had that in the prequel with Kashyyyk, with the Wookiees, but it's different. It looks more gritty, the background. And in Halo, you always have this, these places that, like you said, 5-star resort. But it looked good. But I didn't like that. I thought it sacrificed a little bit of character to have these people. It was very task-based, and I wish it had been more character-based. Although, yes, the goal of the movie was to show how they got the plans from the Death Star, so maybe that's how it had to be. It's a fun movie.
Which, by the way, having an elaborate plan specifically to try and keep a super weapon that can destroy life forms on a planet from ever firing, this is starting to sound extremely familiar. Pretty much that's half the Halo series right there.
Yes. Yes. It's true. Oh my goodness, yeah. But it's a cool movie. Come on, it's a cool movie. People like that.
Oh, I still loved it. I still actually like it a little bit more in Force Awakens. Not to say I don't like Force Awakens either. Partially because it does feel so much like a video game movie, and let's be honest, most video game movies kind of suck.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, it's sad. I don't know why is that, because, they have such cool stories, video games, cool characters, action. I don't know why it just doesn't translate in movies,
Especially sad considering how close we actually did get to getting a Halo movie, only for it to kind of fall apart at the last minute. And then eventually its assets got re-rolled into District 9, so we're finally actually getting some cinematic Halo content with the web series, with Machinima, and I believe that there's going to be a TV show at some point.
Really? I hope there is. I actually like the web series that Forward into Down. I like the animation for Fall of Reach. I didn't like the one directed by Ridley Scott, Nightfall. Did you like that one?
No. And
again,
did. Ever since Alien, I haven't really liked most stuff from Ridley Scott.
Yeah, but it's a cool thing that they are bringing, such a top director to do stuff for Halo. It has this great potential, and maybe it could, or maybe not. Maybe they're gonna ruin it. It's better that they don't do it. I don't know.
Well, all good things come in time, so maybe if we're patient enough.
Yeah. Another one that I wanted to talk about is the new Battlefront 2, and when I saw it, the way the soldier looks, it reminded me a lot of Halo. What did you think?
Definitely. I mean, again, to go back to the comparison, in the original trilogy, the Stormtrooper armor was just a bunch of guys in white armor. Yeah. If anything, it was vaguely similar to samurai armor with a little bit of World War II German armor. But nowadays, we're having outright powered armor showing up in Star Wars. And again, Halo was not the first thing to ever come up with powered armor, but if you show the cover of Halo to anybody, what's the first thing that they're going to always recognize? It's Master Chief and his powered armor.
Yeah.
Where nowadays it seems like it's less what we're using to cover up our mooks so you don't care when they get killed. Now it's actually part of the character. You recognize someone because of the armor they're wearing.
Yeah.
And you even see that in the Clone Wars show with, like, Rex and Cody.
Yeah, it's true. And like in this new Battlefront, I haven't played it, but it's an elite team, so you know they are in that way this kind of super soldiers, and so in this sense, it's definitely not only from Halo, but from all this. You know, there's a whole wave of games in that vein, but Halo was one of the most important, of course.
Just as Star Wars is kind of the landmark trilogy. Well, trilogies of sci-fi, I think you could make a very, very sound argument that Halo is the landmark trilogy of sci-fi gaming. It's certainly not the only notable sci-fi game, and it's not even the first by a long shot, but it certainly is one that probably had the most impact. I mean, people tend to forget just how big the game series was, especially during Halo 2 and 3's release. There were people lining up out stores to wait for days when Halo 3 came out. You had adverts during the Super Bowl. That's extremely rare for a video game back then.
It's one thing Microsoft does right. I hope they continue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I think it's big. And even now, I know that because Bungie is in other games and there are so many similar games, it's maybe not as big, but it's still pretty big. I mean, it's something. You talk about a new Halo game, it's something.
I mean, just to bring up one of the games that Bungie actually did before Halo that clearly had an influence on it, and might have, by extension, influenced Star Wars, is one of their games called Oni, which they had a female protagonist in a sci-fi game. Now that certainly is not new. I mean, if you go in gaming, you go to Metroid with Samus Aran being probably one of the most well-known heroines in gaming. But it definitely influenced Halo because Halo pays tribute to a bunch of Bungie's older games. And what's something we see time and time again in Halo, it's very, very well-made, very common female characters.
Yes, definitely. That's one thing that I thought also when I saw the Battlefront, and they're all like, oh my goodness, Star Wars has female protagonists. Like, okay, what year is this? 1950? Like, why are you freaking out because of that? But, you know, with Halo you have cool female characters and you have female soldiers, and in the multiplayer you can play as a female, but not as a female elite. And that's something that I wanted to talk about. We had a podcast that we talked about masculinity in Star Wars and talked about all the idea that the fathers, and it is about fathers and sons. Now, what I think is that the Halo franchise, it takes on the idea of mothers with Dr. Halsey and how she's this mother for these Spartans and this motherly figure. I don't know, what do you think about it?
I definitely can see the parallel there. I mean, Halsey, just like Darth Vader and by extension Anakin, is not a pure little snowflake. But a good contrast between the two is while Halsey does do some really shady stuff, she ultimately does do it in the name of trying to protect her metaphorical children. Whereas, obviously, Darth Vader definitely needed some corrective stuff.
Yeah, Halsey is a great character. I really like it because, you know, unfortunately, even nowadays, there are very few older female characters. It's just sad to say that. Women get old and they disappear from fiction, and it's just sad. And you have this amazing, great, complex character that's super, super important and that's Halsey. And there's this thing of this mother, and there's also those shorts. I forgot. Oh yeah, Halo Legends. It has one short that's called "The Odd One Out." It's not canon, but it's a parody of the. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, but it's a parody of the Halo universe. So it's taking ideas from the universe, and they have that AI that's this, what is it, they call it, mom or
Mama. Mama.
Mama. You like that one? Yeah.
Oh, I love that one. It is so stupidly hilarious that you cannot not love it.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I'm not saying, oh, that's what it is, but you know, you're tapping on themes of the thing, right? So that's a little bit tapping on that theme, and you have the idea of the House. You have the journal, Dr. House's journal, and she says, oh, about the AIs. Are they my daughters, my sisters? So that goes also to Cortana. Cortana is a little bit, she's made from Dr. House's brain, so she's kind of Dr. House, a younger version. I don't know, it has this whole feminine thing that's interesting. And Cortana is a really cool character, even though I know some people don't like it because, you know, she doesn't wear a lot of clothes, but I think she's a really cool character as well.
Hey, as I like to put it, she could wear as little as she wants, and she can wear it just fine. Anyway, I mean, that's one sign of showing a female character. She needs to be confident in how she looks. And as we see with other cases of AI, they choose how they appear, so, hey, she just appears to look like that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not what defines her personality, right? You could talk about objectifying, but I remember Carrie Fisher said about, when she put Return of the Jedi, they said, okay, they put me in that bikini, and then I could no longer talk. And, she's in that bikini, she can't talk because she's in a bikini, she's this thing to be seen, and that's absolutely not the case with Cortana. She's the one who does, most of the talking, and so that's different with that. Yeah, but and I'm thinking you could balance and put some men, but imagine if they made Roland. I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I don't think anyone would like to see that.
I don't think most would, especially if we ever got like a gender flipped version of what happened to Leia with some guy probably stuck in a thong. That would. I don't know, some ladies and some guys in the audience, I'm not judging, probably like to see that, but I think general audience would go, what the?
Yeah, usually people don't really like to see men, yeah.
Though to be contrast with Cortana, pretty much every other female character in the entire Halo franchise is very sensibly dressed. Both the other AIs, the Spartans, the female military personnel, Halsey herself.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody is. There's the armor that the Spartans wear is just, everything. It's not ridiculous, like feminine in quote unquote.
Yeah, unless the female Spartan is speaking, and if you're just taking a glance at her, there's no way you could tell who's a boy and who's a girl under all that armor. And you have to really look to possibly get an inclination. Even then, you might be wrong. Oh,
I don't know. In the multiplayer, the females, they have skinnier arms, which is realistic, right? And skinnier waists, which is also a little bit realistic. So.
Yeah, though in the middle of a firefight, are you really going to notice that?
No. No, you're not going to notice that. Only when they scream, it's like, ah! And it's like, it's a female.
And that's also something we're starting to see in Star Wars now, is we're starting to see females in completely covering armor. I mean, just look at the Battlefront 2 thing again.
Yeah, that's it, Phasma. And people are like, oh, that doesn't look like a woman's armor. And it's like, it's a woman in an armor. It's true, and that's the first time we see it, and yeah.
Which is one of the things that just annoys the hell out of me whenever I'm doing story making, is sometimes I see people who make a good female character. Mm-hmm. They make her a good personality. If she's a fighter, she's kicking all kinds of ass. And then they stick her in something that looks like it should be stripper gear.
Yeah, I know.
Why? Why? If she's supposed to be armored, why is we having a blue window? Why is she not wearing anything on her legs? So, seeing Halo first and then Star Wars following suit, I'm really, really happy with that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to have, I think it's cool for everybody because it's more realistic of of our lives. It's not about, ideology or anything, but, it's realistic. We live in a world with men and women, and it's cool to see them, interacting. Although I'm going to say I'm still not super happy with Star Wars, especially Rogue One, because it had Jean, okay, she was the protagonist, but she was the only one, and I mean, they could have put a woman there among them, it wouldn't have killed them, and they had that scene with the scientists, and they were all male, and okay, it was the Empire, but I guess they would have gotten the best people. I don't know, I wasn't happy, I felt, except for the fact that she was the protagonist, I felt like I was watching a movie of like 30 years ago, and they're all, Lucasfilm's like, oh, we're so forward, and we want to bring women. And
token Asian, token robot, token woman.
Yeah.
That's movies 30 years ago. You gotta get your token quota up.
Exactly. So that's 30 years ago. And something interesting that you mentioned, the robots. Something I was going to say is that one thing that I'm going to compare is Cortana to R2-D2. A little bit. I'm just saying that, the idea that they have... it didn't start with Star Wars, but you have this artificial intelligence that is, autonomous and does a lot of things and actually saves the good guys. You have that in Star Wars, and you're going to have that in Halo, but it's obviously different. The AIs are very unique characters, especially Cortana, and, her relationship, her friendship with the Master Chief is super interesting, super unique, and I think it's super cool.
Especially considering you can somewhat even see it as a romance, but it's completely asexual.
Yeah.
never sexualized despite her appearance by Chief.
That's what I like. That's one other thing that I actually like. I actually don't mind the fact that she doesn't wear a lot of clothes because she's actually not sexualized. And she's not, but I know some people think it's romantic, but I think it's different. She gets in his brain. It's a unique relationship. To compare it to romance is almost to. I don't think it's anything that we could compare, and I don't think it makes it. I don't think for them they would make the distinction of romantic or non-romantic because it's a different thing,
Yeah,
that's what I think.
But we certainly are seeing in the post-Halo series, we're seeing a lot more non-human robots and AI showing up in a lot of more science fiction, especially ones that can have a very, very distinct personality and mannerisms. I mean, yes, in the original trilogy we got stuff like C-3PO and R2. But now look what we have now. Well, we have a lot more droids talking, for one. We're also starting to get computers that are talking back, which, again, that's not something Halo started, but it's something that it certainly codified and made much more popular. Because it seemed to actually popped up at around the same time Star Wars did, such as, again, Star Trek. But then it kind of flew under the radar again until Halo brought it back.
It's true. Although now, the recent Halo and Evil Cortana, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I mean, it's kind of cool, but anyways, but it's true that, these things, they're popping up everywhere.
If the Snoke hologram turns out to be a hologram projected by 3PO or R2, I am going to laugh, though. That's one thing I hope that Star Wars does not copy from Halo.
Yeah, that would be funny. Yeah, no, I hope. I don't think so, because from the spoilers, we're going to see him now, so it's not. But it's just one thing that I just realized is that in The Force Awakens we had BB-8, but he didn't do anything, which was different from the other movies when we had R2-D2 do a lot of stuff. When I compare him to Cortana, I know it's exaggerated, but you have Cortana like opening doors and getting tactical information, accessing computers, but we didn't get that with BB-8. I mean, I thought it was something that was missing.
Yeah,
he was
true.
Cute, but he was just rolling around with that. I hope well, we're gonna have R2-D2 with Rey now, so maybe we're gonna have more, because I think it's a mark of Star Wars, right? When George Lucas first envisioned the first movie, he modeled R2-D2 and C-3PO into characters, so that the story is told from their point of view. So to take that, I think it's something that, it's a little bit off.
And I don't think it really is any surprise that we're also suddenly getting so many female characters in Star Wars after we have an entire decade of Halo throwing multiple female characters at us. Not even always in big roles. I remember as far back as Halo 2, we started getting female Marines in just the mundane grunt roles. Up until then, I don't think we've ever seen a woman in a combat scenario in sci-fi, at least nothing in that high profile.
Yeah, it's true, and it works, and people play, people enjoy it, and nobody even complains about it. You just put it there, and although people complain about Sarah Palmer, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it's just not a likable character, which I actually think it's cool to have a female character that's not likable, super likable. And people complain also because she clashed with Dr. Halsey, so it's kind of neat to have like a more complex relationship.
Yeah, we pretty much only ever had very, very likable and very, very good female characters in sci-fi up until recently. It's only now we're starting to get some more of the grungy types.
Yeah, and I think it's good. It's good. Yeah, she shot Halsey, and that's cool. Yeah, it's cool that if people hate her. It's neat, because if you have all of this perfect, it's not a character, and if you have this more complex character, so that's something I still want to see in Star Wars. By the way, because Rey is a little bit too much. I know she shot. She's
a little ray of sunshine.
Yeah, she's too much. She does everything too nicely, and of course, but a little bit of complexity, that would be interesting.
Yeah, it's funny you mention this because I was recently looking on the reaction to the Star Wars web series called Forces of Destiny, which follows a lot of the new heroines. And one of the things that people took issue with most was they had the short with Jyn Erso with her saving someone's cat. And that kind of seems to clash with how she was at the start of Rogue One, because it seems like there they were trying to insinuate she was entirely selfish and only cared about herself. And now we're making her more squeaky clean glean.
But you know, they want to sell like backpacks and lunchboxes in pink to girls, which is okay. You know, girls have the rights to have their Star Wars backpacks and lunchboxes. And if they don't make it pink, the parents are not gonna buy them. So, but yeah, to have to change the character for that, yeah, that's kind of sad.
I just also pity any little girl who saw that Forces of Destiny thing, now loves Jyn, and then goes sees Rogue One and sees her get blown up at the end.
Oh, well, don't worry about it. Lots of kids loved the Clone Wars and loved Anakin, and come on, it can get worse, you know, and then they're gonna watch Revenge of the Sith. Anakin, there are too many! So, you know, I think it's okay. You know, I wish female characters didn't have to be treated with gloves and everything, but I hope that's something that changes. It's something that I don't have complaints in terms of Halo with that. I think they're pretty cool, and like I said, it may influence people. And with Star Wars, they still have a long way to go.
I do have some hope, because apparently one of the things we have heard about with Last Jedi is Phasma is finally going to be able to do something. And I think that's one thing that Star Wars really needs. We nailed the female heroine. Great. What I think we really need is a villainess at this point. Because we did have Ventress in the Clone Wars TV show, but even then, she was mostly just a lackey, and, well, she was in a TV show, not a movie.
Yeah, I loved her, but she was super overpowered. There's this thing that she overpowers Anakin and Obi-Wan at the same time. But it's exaggerated, and yeah.
Well, that show, everyone's power seems to jump up and down when we saw a Jedi Master get killed by getting headbutted.
Yeah, I know. It was a little bit, yeah. R2-D2 in that show was like, oh my goodness, he's flying by himself, he's doing all these things, and yeah, but it's a good show. I actually really liked it. I don't like Rebels as much, though.
Any scene with Vader and any scene with Ahsoka was good. Rest of Rebels, I'm hit or miss on. It is getting better, though.
Okay.
And unfortunately, there is one other problem with Rebels when it does come with a female cast is I think they could afford to use a little bit more edge on some of the casts. Especially since we're focusing on the rebellion. I mean, let's be honest here, from many other perspectives, rebels are terrorists. So why aren't we seeing more gray aspects of the rebellion? And we started seeing some of that in Rogue One with Cassian, with him blatantly killing someone in the beginning, but then we kind of fall back into the squeaky clean good and evil thing again.
Yeah, I know. And the evil guys were like really evil as well. I didn't see any gray stuff in them. Yeah, but it's okay. It's a good movie.
Yeah, which I'm gonna still say, one thing I really always loved in Halo was that gray on gray aspect, because as you get on more and more across the games, you see that the humans aren't always so squeaky clean good, and the aliens weren't straight up evil. Just for the sake of it, they were doing it because they thought they were doing the right thing. And now that we have in Star Wars, we have characters like Finn, can we really look at your random stormtrooper moves the same way again?
Yeah, but I didn't like The Force Awakens that you had Finn the Fact, which was kind of cool. And then they're shooting stormtroopers and cheering, you know, right after that. I don't know. I think at least Finn, you know, it's the people he grew up with, and he's killing them. He doesn't care. I mean, I understand the movie wanted to be light and not explore that, but I don't know. I don't know. But maybe it's
we had one of his old squad mates outright recognize him in the middle of a battlefield.
Yeah, and yeah, I know. The Force Awakens has some problems, I mean, let's agree.
To be fair, A New Hope also had some problems. It's their first movie, and let's let them get their feet under them.
Yeah, it's true, and in many ways it was a hard task, right? Because they had to get all the people who hated the prequels on board, all the people who, new people on board, and, when you're afraid of criticism, it's hard to risk. So it's a very safe movie, and safe is usually a little bit boring anyways.
And Halo was much the same way. As much as I love the original Halo game, Combat Evolved, you see things in there that got more polished up in the sequels.
Yeah,
in Halo
true.
Combat Evolved, that gray on gray thing I was mentioning, it wasn't there at all. It only popped up in the sequels.
It's true, you're absolutely right. Yeah, so that's something I think we're gonna see with in The Last Jedi, of the red posters and everything. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, when you cast Adam Driver as your main enemy, at least the main physical force, you know you're going to end up doing something a little more complex than snotty Whiplash evil.
Okay, so Tarb, thank you very much for being here. Do you have any last words for listeners, viewers?
Don't get too cynical over the new media. Let everything have time to sink in, and you might find yourself liking stuff that initially you took bad reaction to. In both Halo and Star Wars, if there's one similarity, I think it's knee-jerk reactions, and maybe you'll find yourself hating stuff less.
That's lovely advice. I love it. And okay, so thanks everybody who listened. If you have any questions, send us an email. You can send a comment. You can follow us on Twitter, on Tumblr. And the music is new. We had to change the music, but this is Galaxies by Stellardrone. Thank you very much for listening, and until the next time, may the Force be with you.
Always.